and welcome back to the Clearly podcast. We are outside the office today on an off-site, and today I'm really excited to have a guest in town, someone who has been in corporate boardrooms all the way through to a startup hustle. He's been an advisor and a builder, and today he's here to tell us all about behind the scenes, from what it takes to change the way the world moves. Franck, welcome to the scene. I'd really like to start off, Franck, in terms of you telling us, the people who don't know in the world, who are you and what's been your journey so far?
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, and hello, of course. So I always introduce myself as being French, educated in the UK, married to a German, living in Germany, in Stuttgart. After my education in England, I started working in the UK, first for a startup during the internet bubble, and then moved to a market research and consultancy firm, Frost & Sullivan, where I was one of the founding members of the mobility group. And after 20 years, I decided to move to the corporate world and joined Bridgestone Mobility Solutions, where I was VP of Strategy and Innovation. And since a few months now, I've decided to move on my own, working as a freelance consultant, leveraging this career, this expertise, this experience, and helping clients in that space.
So within that, sitting within the board rooms, a lot of across the whole supply chain, I guess, of automotive and globally, really looking into the depths of strategy and being the advisor to start with. The advisor across a new form of strategy and M&A, a change in operations, and then following that journey, but sitting on the advisory to start with.
On the advisory side, which is super interesting in terms of the breadth of topics that you get involved in. I've had that chance of touching many different topics in the automotive space, in mobility space, from new technology, old technology, new business models, new services, telematics, new transportation systems, etc. That was a very exciting learning for many years. On the flip side is you as a consultant, you never see the outcome of your work. And that's one of the reasons where I wanted to move to the corporate world. So to say.
Yeah, I was about to say you were in it long enough for 20 years that you may have seen the end point, but even then, I guess you're so overwhelmed with one project to the next, you don't actually know whether it was a success or failure because of the advisory you did, or whether it was a market movement or an internal failure from operations. It's hard then to assess after because you're out of the room onto your next project.
It's interesting because one of the frustration as a consultant is you spend a lot of time, a lot of energy in building the analysis, building the intelligence, and providing the strategic recommendations. And sometimes you don't see that, or you see that many years later, and you don't know why. You don't understand the complexity of internal politics, governance that actually large corporates are facing.
100%. So what was the 20 years, right, in one industry, knowing the ins and outs and advising players like Bridgestone, and then becoming as one of the C-suites within the organization, especially with a new arm that you're driving a ton of innovation, which the effect we can call is the data arm. It's everything to do with telematics through to connected tires and a new revenue stream and new forms of innovation to make sure that it's not just selling the tire, which of course is around the volume and the lowest price, but everything around the tire. Before we go into that, I guess the key question is, what was the biggest myth that you went in with that was just completely scrapped, as you saw, in terms of that strategy into actual build mode within the organization?
It's not necessarily about the biggest idea. That's a big myth in my mind. In fact, the biggest complexity is not about finding the ideas, but really about that operationalization of it, aligning strategy, securing resources, organizing, making sure that the organization inertia is following that development and that path that you're setting. That is probably the most difficult and the biggest complexity for organizations to actually shift from and embrace a new development and an innovation, a new strategy.
Perfectly brings on to leadership. So if you are going to be the pack leader in terms of a new idea or a new way of working, not the big idea, it could be a small idea, or a way of working. I guess what's that secret sauce that you learned over the years in terms of that leadership skill?
I'm not sure there's a secret sauce, if you wouldn't, from my perspective, say that, but maybe some of the effective means that I've used and have found to be effective. I don't think there's a secret sauce to leadership, so to say. There's probably many ways of not doing things, but not one way of doing them. What I found to be successful or to be effective is really to to go down to the trenches with the team. And especially the smaller the organization, maybe the easier, so to say. But certainly, even at Frost and Sullivan, I found myself more often than not really spending time early in the morning with a team in India, or in the evening with a team in the US, trying to find solutions to difficult projects and situations that we were facing. And really, that time spent trying to find a solution with a team is worth millions when it comes to trust, loyalty, and the willingness to go the extra mile for the team members.
Very interesting. Let's flip directly to feats themselves, right? I mean, you've been working with operators, investors, board members, startups, down in the trenches from those that are actually building themselves. I guess really, what is behind closed doors that we don't see?
Well, yeah, that maybe what we don't see behind closed doors, or what's happening behind closed doors is, as soon as you try to bring innovations, you're facing automatically some fightbacks within the organization. As normal reaction, that's natural, only natural. And for new strategy or innovation to be successful, what you find in the board environment is the fact that a strategy may have a, a vision that will deliver result within 5 to 10 years, but in the board the expectation is what's happening in the next 18 to 24 months at the most. That balance is quite important. How do you deliver with that innovation, with that new strategy, early wins on one hand, while keeping the ambition intact in the minds of the organization, in the mind of your partners in the industry?
So I guess it's behind closed doors is that you may have a lot of the marketing in terms of this big win that came, and it was a huge innovation, potentially after 5 years, and the foresight that this company had to put so many years and investment and time in it. We're actually behind closed doors. What you're really doing is you have strong leaders like yourself, where it's really is around you're having this long-term vision. You're proving snippets of savings or new creations and revenue generation short term. You say 18 months, some people are not even as generous as that, and they may say, well, we work in quarterly updates, so let's see the next quarter by quarter. Exactly. Unless we're in the US and we move into the 6 months, if Trump has his way. So I guess proving what's really happening behind closed doors is good leadership to provide enough appetite to show the snippets along the way. And these innovations can be a huge time and cost resource. And I guess also having the confidence from those that are above you and also those that are below you, that you're continuously making calculated risk by listening to both the market and top level, also the people on the ground telling you this is impossible to do, or actually we're not pushing hard enough.
But in your investment in innovation, you have the incremental innovation, you have the second layer and the third layer, and you need a fair representation of these different timelines. And the longer the timelines, the bigger the bet. Automatically, you don't have the certainties that you have. But you cannot just focus on tomorrow. You need to focus on the day after. You need to prepare for the day after that as well. Otherwise, you find yourself, stuck in a couple of years from now without the material to grow further, and the cost of growth at that point will be too dear. And that's the challenge of strategy and innovation, is to bring that continuous and sustainable flow of growth capacity.
it's not just about the margins today, because if you're only focusing on that and you cut everything else around it, effectively you won't need to look at margins tomorrow because you won't be in business.
Exactly. I was told many years ago that if there's no tomorrow, there's no today, there's no tomorrow. So definitely, that was one of the learning that I had many years back. You need to achieve those margins today in order to be alive and have fun and enjoy tomorrow.
And I guess it goes back to the balancing act again. If there's no today, there's no tomorrow. So the balancing act is not just throwing everything into innovation.
No.
It is, of course, staying in a lean environment and making calculated risk and pacing it in a way that you do continue with that investment with, I guess, factors that are coming in to show that there is actually coming success here. We've seen many examples in the market of corporates all the way down to startups that have just blown far too much money on a bet without actually taking that calculated risk.
It was found to be calculated at the time, right? Market change. What's right and sounds right on a paper is sometimes difficult to materialize because of the organization culture, because of the misunderstanding of how complex the integration or the deployment would be. Is it because miscalculated on the value to the customer? There's some really exciting research from Harvard Business Review that shows that a successful innovation needs to bring 9 times the value of the incumbent to be successful. That's why 95% of all innovation fail. So but you need to keep learning from each and every single of this development deployment to not stay static. Not making a decision is regressing.
Exactly. You've spoken in the past around tires being a pretty cool asset, data rich, you should call it. Most people think tires are pretty boring, right? They're just a piece of equipment that gets you from A to B, and then the rest around the car is pretty quick. I guess, what is a data point that you'd stress that saves serious amounts of money?
First of all, I've had the chance many years before working for Bridgestone to work for other tire manufacturers. That's where I learned that the tire was so much more than a piece of rubber, and a very advanced chemical system. In fact, it is the last thing that connects the vehicle to the ground. It is the piece that carry the load of the vehicle. It has an impact, a direct impact on safety, on fuel economy, on maintenance, aware of many parts in the vehicle. What do you need? You need to understand, what is the pressure of the tire, the temperature, the tread depths. From that, these 3 points, if you're able to harness and collect and harness these data points, you can avoid blowouts, reduce downtime, unplanned downtime. You can really reduce fuel consumption significantly. So this has hundreds of thousands of impact.
And the fuel consumption, a concrete example there, it would be a tire pressure, for example.
Tire pressure has a direct impact on fuel consumption. You're talking about a couple of points of consumption for a tire that would be 20% below the recommended rate. And what we found is that, over a third of all vehicles out there have at least one tire that is either 20% underinflated or 20% overinflated.
Oh.
So most vehicles have an issue with inflation, which if it's overinflated, you have a risk of blow up. If it's underinflated, you have a risk of both blow up, and on top of that, you actually waste fuel.
So key data point to save serious money would be, I guess, data on the tire pressure. Many data points we get from, but that would be probably your key.
It's a combination of these 3 points: is pressure, temperature, and tread depth. If you hold these three points, you can save serious amount of money as a fleet operator.
Data is messy. We can speak about this for a long time. It's I don't think either of us have come across any organization, big or small, where the data is wonderfully perfect. And we are bombarded with a lot of volume of data. It's pretty scattered. You can get value by bringing that together. I guess before we go into that, what is the I guess that the one of the most serious issues when it comes to the most form of like dirty data that you've seen as an example?
I think for me, the biggest challenge is the fact that, data is hyper fragmented. I'm not even calling fragmented, it's hyper fragmented. Many, fleets of over 100 vehicles will have multiple telematics system. They will have multiple fuel cards. They will have multi-location to log their maintenance activities. And then so many other systems that they use. All these systems are collecting, generating data that stays within their own silos. That's a total waste. It's a waste of enormous capacity to really measure and improve upon the way these companies operate their vehicles. And if you can measure it, you can improve it. It's almost as simple as that. So this is probably the biggest challenge that we have today, an over capacity of data that is completely unused or to a large extent unused. And what we need to focus on is how do we actually make use? How do we harvest? How do we connect this data to help fleet operators, to help companies actually make better decisions?
Very clear. Hyper scattered data, even a fleet of 100 vehicles having multiple telematic systems, they mind everything else around it, from procurement to asset management to maintenance and all the other tools around it. One of the,
For some of these companies, no, right? You don't have, there's no telematics companies today that is able to cover all the use cases of container telematics to so sweepers, floor sweepers, telematics systems, and so on and so forth. So as a consequence, or a telematics that will cover Turkey as well as Scotland. So in many cases, you will need to have different telematic systems. But as an operator, you need to have a view that covers the entire fleet, not just a partial view. You have many other situations whereby there's concentration of fleets today because of economics and so on and so forth. So as fleets consolidate, you get into a situation where you have multiple telematics solutions. You don't change that overnight. It takes years. But you need to be able to actually still make the most of what you have. And today they can't, because they can't actually merge this data.
and you've got one, multiple use cases requiring different forms of specialization in telematics. You have multiple countries because we are mainly dealing with commercial vehicles that need telematics, so you do have that cross-border element. You then have an increase in M&A, which is obviously a natural scattered effect when it comes to telematics. And then on top of that, you also have an upgraded vehicle. So that's when you will take your vehicle off the road. Good chance to maybe upgrade, consider it again, etc. And we're just talking about one field of data.
Exactly.
Just to kind of, mention that one dashboard and then all the rest around it. So the crucial thing here is that the dirtiest part of this is an overwhelming amount of data. I think that, we have been running it now a very long time on people saying that the data is the gold, but actually it's really the mud when you have no ability to really derive value from it. And the amount of hours that we're both seeing, I guess, and many others, in terms of bringing that data together and doing something with it is just enormous. From moving headcounts to spending 4 to 20 hours a week and still not really getting the true value from it. Another thing, of course, that is spoken a lot at the moment is a bit of an overused word. So I'd love to kind of dive into two questions on this, is agentic AI. So I guess my two questions, and you'll pick the order you do it, is one, what would you bet your reputation on of a big success we'll actually see from agentic in the next 1 to 2 years? So pretty short term. And the other one, what would you actually ban from any slide deck that you would ever see in the market?
I wouldn't ban anything, first of all, because
You never know.
you never know. You don't know what you don't know. But I truly believe in the power of agentic AI. I think it has tremendous potential for our industry and many industries out there. At the same time, I see way too often that agentic AI is portrayed as a solution. No, agentic AI is a tool, not a solution, as a first point. Second, agentic AI is like a super smart junior employee, right? It's not somebody you will give, the full responsibility to the organization. You will not give that person or that system, real-time safety related decisions to be made. Not yet, at least. It needs supervision. It needs to be validated, but it can help to actually, undertake such amount of work in such a such a short time that, you will not be able to do it in any other ways. In terms of the use cases, I think customer support is probably the most sort of short-term opportunity, not just as generative AI. I'm thinking about, the difference for me between generative AI and agentic AI is agentic AI is able to interact with its environment and automate the outcome, the actions that come out, which is not something that you get from generative AI. So I think we're going to see very fast that level of application of agentic AI into customer support. And there's tremendous potential there. It is very, very effective in areas where decisions are repetitive and data rich. Again, it fits very well. I think maybe a bit longer term in our space, I see maintenance, predictive maintenance.
Yes, of course.
Or at least, because predictive maintenance is a bit of an holy grail in itself as well, at least advanced maintenance planning, which, imagine the AI, agentic AI being able to monitor the vehicle, continuously monitor the wear of specific parts on a continuous basis, and, you know, be able to highlight, not just highlight, but also take the appointment at the garage, at the workshop, to make the specific repair before the problem occurs. This is tremendous, again, potential saving in terms of downtime, in terms of cost of maintenance for the fleet operators.
And we know within this industry that actually drivers and staff is an issue. We do need more. So as opposed to this replacing jobs, this is allowing the industry to be more effective in their roles, look at aspects in terms of safety, in terms of compliance, and in the background quietly actually be saving money because you know when to top up in terms of, or it could be tire pressure, or you know when to change something, or you know even when to sort out a vehicle. So it's just allowing people to actually do their roles better as opposed to just saying we're going to replace those roles entirely.
And this is an important point here. For me, agentic AI or AI is not just about saving money. It's about actually helping the organization to spend the money where they can grow.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Right? As opposed to in areas where it does not help them to differentiate.
Yeah, 100%. Staying alive today to stay alive tomorrow. Let's talk about software-defined vehicles that you've spoken all about. What does that mean to you, and how has Bench changed things in the industry?
So software-defined vehicle is going to help reduce complexity in the electronic architecture. So, over-the-air updates will allow to bring solutions in a remote manner to the vehicle when you are facing technical issues into the vehicle. Not only that, but and more importantly, you will be able to bring additional features that will improve, the vehicle life cycle and residual value. Just think about it. For me, I think about software-defined vehicle as a platform like iTunes for transportation, and where fleet management becomes a third-party application you select, you use, that collect the data in the vehicle as it would in a traditional way with an external box, but except that it's fully integrated into the vehicle. It may be third-party still, but it changes the dynamics completely in terms of, ecosystem, in terms of the business model for fleet management solutions out there. And that's what we need to be ready for. And I think that's quite exciting.
Interesting. And I guess, it's kind of the apps on wheels is what we've spoken about in the past in terms of that was kind of an old,
But it could not happen without software-defined vehicle because the structure, the electronic and software architecture was not enabling it.
sure.
You need that change of architecture to actually bring that application on the wheel.
Exactly. And I guess we're also more in tuned of what applications come first, of the importance of the application. And I'm hearing a lot from you in terms of this predictive maintenance, which is obviously not just for cost reduction, but also for safety and forms of compliance, I imagine, as well.
Completely. Safety and compliance are critical points in the evolution. Yeah.
Ah, yes. So I'd love to, just in terms of the wealth of knowledge that you've got, there's a lot of hype in the industry. There are maybe things that are underrated that we're not really monitoring. What is one thing within just ground transportation? Because I think we need to forget this. Every time I talk about transportation, everyone's like, fantastic. Once you cracked ground transportation, I'm sure you want to move to planes and shipping. And well, actually, no, it's fundamentally different. So within ground transportation, and probably even more focus at the moment anyway, in the complexity of there of commercial vehicles, what is one thing that's getting you excited about? One form of innovation that we may not be talking about within the entire supply chain of ground transportation?
And for me, we talked a little bit about that earlier. Is really driven by the waste, and to me, there's two areas of waste. On one hand, that lack of visibility does not allow us to be effective in managing cost of operation. In fact, I will dare to say that many fleets out there have a rather rudimentary view on their total cost of operation, top level, but devil's in the details. And that's one point. The second point is what I call revenue on asset. In the end, especially in the transportation sector, you have extremely low margins, 1 to 3%. You either work on reducing cost or work on improving the revenue on asset. And that revenue on asset is a mix of uptime. It's a mix of limiting or reducing empty runs, dead kilometers as we call them, or maximizing capacity utilization. And really, you have these two levers in a transport organization to work with to stay afloat and be profitable as an organization.
hmm Really good point. Just sort of just a tiny margin. Again, it's trying to focus. In a way, I guess our role is to focus on both. And the waste here is remaining blind when it comes to that lack of data or transparency, which you mentioned earlier in terms of that scattered data view.
It is. I think that the first one on the cost, the data, a lot of the data is already there.
Yes.
On the capacity utilization, we have a bigger issue in the sense that the base data is not necessarily widely available because only a very small portion of the cargo supply and demand is actually visible. And you will need that visibility to actually bring significant improvement in the overall capacity utilization of trucks on the road.
There's not enough data to infer the missing data. So, for example, on the capacity, if we can't see the cargo inside the truck, as an example, we can't use that data on the tires to see the weight pressure.
It goes, first of all, telematics penetration is still not 100% and far from it. Then, the visibility in the cargo, in the trailer is almost nil, if at all. Then you have different models of less than truck load, full truck load, but a full truck load model doesn't mean that the truck is actually full. In fact, the shipper could actually buy a full truckload and still only have a very small package inside the truck, as long as the basically the cargo is paid, so to say. So you don't have that visibility. You don't have the full visibility of all the shippers that need the goods to be transported from A to B. And that is what will help to actually bring additional sort of a utilization if you're traveling between, I don't know, Paris and Berlin, and you know that there's a cargo needs to be delivered between Frankfurt and Berlin, and you're passing by, then it makes sense to drop by, pick it up if you have space, and deliver it in Berlin if the ETA actually allows for that.
Or even
But you need to be
a small detour.
but you need to be aware of it. And a small detour, yes, depending on the ETA again, depending on whether there's, what is the additional cost of that and so forth. But yes.
And just quickly, we could go into a whole conversation on that. You said that there's still areas where we don't have the data. So we have the movement data from telematics in majority of cases. Are you saying then that we don't have the data on tracking? Surely there are systems that track what goes inside a truck. Are you saying that there's an inability at the moment to merge those two data sets of the cargo versus
So
truck?
first of all, telematics in trucks is still, you don't have much more than half of the trucks that have telematics. That's the first part. Then the other system that you need to consider when it comes to cargo is what you call TMS, Transport Management System, which actually is even more fragmented than telematics in Europe and has a lower penetration amongst carriers than telematics. So you have actually the worst of both worlds here that needs to actually come together and bring significant improvement. That's why I said on that part you have less readily available data to work with, something that we need to find solutions to improve. Whereas on the cost side, there's actually a lot of data, too much data, in fact, but we are not able to harvest it and analyze it in the right ways and deliver actionable information.
Yep, got it. Really interesting. Final question we always ask everyone who comes into the podcast, clearly, is you have a billboard. For you, it's going to be on because you've been heavily involved in very important and sexy tire, not boring at all, that is on the ground. So it's moving anywhere possible. And of course, telematics that track anywhere in the world. So we're going to be on every motorway, and we'll just keep it for the sake of conversation in Europe. What does that billboard, a one-liner, or could be one word, but short and sharp, does it say, so that everyone can think of it when they think of Franck is representing in his mind?
For me, it will have to be stop collecting data, start using it.
Like it a lot. Data is mad until you turn it into something and it becomes gold.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've touched so much. I asked you to debug the myth. In fact, it's not about the big ideas. It really is about the sometimes small, but really it's around how do you gather the troops behind you internally and externally to gather it along. Leadership, there is no secret sauce. It really is bringing those, going into the trenches, being, of course, in top management and managing that message point from the quarterly, sometimes 18-month update, all the way down to driving that long-term innovation. But if you are in the trenches, you do get that respect and, of course, that knowledge to know when you need to shift gears and make a different calculated risk based on not just the art of the wanted, but the art of the possible. Innovation and the pushback, of course, ongoing learning from Matt, to always be innovating, but always staying on pulse to make sure that we are in line with margins and staying alive today to stay alive tomorrow. Data, the bigger, the dirtiest issue, the hardest issue when it comes to data is this hyper scattered, the hyper fragmentation that we're seeing and how we need to solve for that. Agentic effect you're seeing as a tool, and we just need to remind ourselves that this is like a very smart and very keen junior and very super junior member of staff that need to be guided for now. It needs to be guided. The more we guide it, of course, the more knowledge we're giving, and that knowledge pass on and through supervision will allow us to use it more. Once we do that, of course, it's the art of acting, as we've got confidence within this junior, mid, and then senior member of staff. It's then to allow them to do actions, with the crucial thing being, of course, repetitive task. I mentioned customer service as one, and moving on to a bigger problem, which we mentioned a lot, which is the preventative maintenance or maintenance management. A big waste that you're seeing, of course, within the cost side, we've got abundance of data, but we are blind. Let's stop being blind, open our eyes, and actually bring that data together and solve that scattered data approach. But when it comes to revenue, we actually still, which is something that I really learned today, so thank you for that, is that we don't have that data abundance. We still need to do more connectivity when it comes to both telematics, TMS data, to look at cargo loads and how we can make more money and sweat our assets more in a very low 1 to 3% margin business within transportation on the ground and commercial. And that billboard, of course, keep that in mind. It's a lovely comment, really just it sums everything up within data. And let's just really start using it and being smarter. Thank you so much for coming in. I could talk to you for hours. You've got tons of knowledge. I have the privilege that I can later over dinner. We're here from Lincolnshire on the Clearly Offsite. We're really privileged to have people like Frank and others in the room to learn from. And I hope you enjoyed today's session. Reach out to Frank, and I hope you're not going to get bombarded after this if you want more information. And we'll see you soon.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.